Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Racing Dudes Daily Show. We're back covering the Preakness Stakes. Aaron Haltman, Mike Somich, Magic here to talk about it. Gentlemen, the headline that we're going to talk about for 5 seconds, because Aaron, you guys did a great job on Blinkers Off last night. Rich Strike, winner of the Kentucky Derby, out of the Preakness Stakes. Just your overall thoughts real quick, Aaron.
Well, it's disappointing from a standpoint of a lot of new people would have watched this race and would have been really excited to see him. If you didn't want to bet him, it's disappointing as well, because you think he was going to take money and maybe you could take advantage of that. And of course, if you did want to bet him, it's also disappointing. So I guess the right word is just disappointment that the Derby winner will not be at Pimlico next weekend.
Mike, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think Aaron nailed it, man. It's a bummer. I think that's really the best way to put it. We had a lot of new eyes on the sport because an 80-1 shot won the Derby. I think a lot of people would have been following that horse back to the Pimlico. Obviously not going to have a shot at a Triple Crown winner this year, which kind of is a bummer for Belmont as well. And as a bettor, I was looking forward to fade the crap out of the horse. So I would have been happy to see that horse at Pimlico because the combination of Secret Oath and him was going to make it kind of like a juice-free race in my mind. And now we just have Secret Oath that's going to take some money that I think is going to be ill-fated. But we'll see what happens. We move on, and we'll be fine without Rich Strike. We were just fine without him 2 weeks ago. We'll be fine without him next week.
Well, part of the reason that his trainer said that they were going to wait until the Belmont was the spacing, and that kind of brings up an interesting discussion, Aaron, that the Triple Crown season, for as long as I can remember, anybody can remember, it's been Derby, 2 weeks to the Preakness, 3 weeks to the Belmont, and part of that rigorous schedule is what makes it so tough to win the Triple Crown season. But the way that training has changed in America and the way that racing overall, the landscape is changing, is that broken? Do we need to change the system?
Yeah, I have been against it forever, but I think it's time we read what the connections of these horses are telling us. And this is not a reaction to Rich Strike. I've kind of started to feel like this the last couple of years. We go all year trying to get to the Derby, building up these 20 horses, watching these 20 horses run in all these different races, getting to know all of these horses. And we get to the Preakness, and it's like 2 or 3 runners from that Derby that go to the Preakness. And a lot of them end up skipping the Belmont because it's kind of more of a specialist type of race. It's a 1.5 miles. And so we go all year building up these horses, and then we don't see them again until the summer a lot of times. To me, I think we have to take into account what the owners, what the trainers are telling us, and we have to adjust. I know it kind of, it ruins it, that tradition and history and all that, and it's going to be easier. I think it'd be harder to win if we spread them out 4 weeks apart. You know why? I think the races would be better. You would have better horses. Epicenter is in the Preakness. Zandon's not going to go. What's easier? Beating a weaker field in 2 weeks or trying to have to beat Zandon again? What if we had to deal with Messier if he had a reasonable pace? To me, spacing it out is the only way we're going to end up saving this, because right now it seems very irrelevant right now to me, the Triple Crown. It really does. It's never meant less for me, and that's a guy that was there and was in tears when American Pharoah won it. But when you look at who trained American Pharoah, Baffert, who trained Justify, Baffert, is that what it takes to win this thing now, the way we're training horses? Somebody like Baffert? To me, to save it, we got to space it out. And I'm not saying 6 weeks in between, 8 weeks in between, 4 weeks, the normal time period that we space all of our other big races out. That's what I would like to see.
Strong argument for changing the system and kind of spacing out the Triple Crown a little bit. Mike Somich, you're on the other side of the fence here. Go ahead with tradition. Explain why that's better.
Yeah, it's a terrible take, Aaron. Let's first off, let me be very clear. I'm for a shorter NBA season. I'm for a shorter Major League Baseball season. I don't give a damn about the records. You can shrink that stuff down. I don't think it makes any sense. As far as changing the Triple Crown, we have to stop being reactionary about this, okay? The last 4 years have been a little bit of a mess. You had Country House the first time. Country House we literally never saw again at the racetrack. So he misses the Preakness. Okay, fine. The next year, the Preakness was actually the third jewel of the Triple Crown because of COVID. So Authentic runs in the Derby, wins that, runs back in the Preakness. Great to see him there. Last year, Medina Spirit went to the Preakness. We also had other Bafferts that challenged Medina Spirit. It was a 10-horse field. It was a darn good race, if I remember correctly. This year, Rich Strike isn't going to the Preakness. You know why? Because he'd get waxed there. That's the real reason why he's not going to the Preakness. So let's take a smaller picture or bigger picture at this and not just focus on the last 4 years, where I agree with you. Yes, and we've had some ownership groups who have passed on the Preakness because of that. But the Preakness traditionally hasn't been a massive field. But if you look at some of the races we've gotten through the years, the Preakness, you could make an argument, is one of the best Triple Crown jewels from just a race perspective. I mean, you've got a Fleet Alex, you've got Sunday Silence Easy Goer, you've got Rachel Alexandra. You get storylines because you get new shooters who couldn't make the Derby or who were able to progress. And then you have to take factor in, yeah, it's tough to turn around in 2 weeks. That's the whole darn point of this thing, is that it's hard to turn around in 2 weeks. And then on top of that, the Belmont is a specialty distance. It's 1.5 miles. It's different. If you're going to argue about changing the Triple Crown, change the Belmont distance over changing the timeline, in my mind, to make it more consistent for a single horse to be able to win all three. The other problem with this, let's say we do your plan. Does Pimlico even run in early June when they would actually run the second one? And then Belmont would be running the third one in early July, which completely screws the Haskell, which completely screws the Travers, which completely screws the Breeders' Cup. You essentially have to change the entire schedule if you're choosing to do that. Obviously, it's possible. We saw it happen in the COVID year. But it completely changes everything from the 3-year-old perspective. And you're also going to get people training differently if you do this. You're going to see people that are going to start. You're going to have more horses that are aiming for just the Belmont because it's later in the 3-year-old season. You're going to have trainers specifically focus on that. So to me, you are completely re-architecting the system. It's not as simple as let's push it back 2 weeks, let's push it back 2 weeks. You're changing the entire yearly schedule. Really, this is a reaction to the last 4 years. Prior to that, everything was fine. And you actually agree with that. The old Aaron agreed with that. So to me, it's a lot to do with the fact that the last 4 years have been a little funky, and that's because of COVID, the first ever DQ, and the longest shot since 1913. If we're going to change everything because of those data points, we're going to change a lot of things.
All good points. I don't disagree with anything he said, especially about the Preakness being such an exciting race. Over the years, this has been the most exciting race. It really has. I mean, you take away the hype of the Derby and the craziness of it. You just look at, okay, what race is really exciting? The Preakness year in and year out does kind of produce really good results. Here's the problem. Number one, there's two things I'll kind of counter here. I think we saw in the COVID year, the Triple Crown makes their decision on when to run, and then everybody else follows suit. I think that would happen again if they changed it. I think everybody else would just kind of fall into place. Here's the problem. There's less and less trainers that are willing to do this. That's where the problem is, right? Look at this year. Chad Brown, Zandon could win the Preakness, guys. There's no doubt. He's not going to do it. He's not going to put him in there, right? Is it because he put good magic in there and then he wasn't any good the rest of the year? Maybe. Less and less people really want to do it. Okay, let's take a look at who we've got from the Derby. We got Epicenter. Well, he's trained by Steve Asmussen, right? He's an old school type of guy. You got Simplification. Sano, he runs them. Lucas. Think if Lucas didn't win this, Oaks. That's another horse you could take out. Lucas is the only person in the world that would put that filly back in 2 weeks. We're hitting less and less of these people. Lucas is 87 years old. I mean, it's really pigeonholing who will actually try it. Mike, wouldn't you love to see White Barrio in this race? I know I would.
Yeah, but again, you're looking at this through a very short lens. This year's Derby, it's a data point you throw out. It's just a wonky Derby because of the pace, how bad the trips were. Of course, Messier is not going to come back. The plan was to bring White Barrio back. We talked to the ownership group before. They said, yeah, we're going to go to the Preakness. And you know what? They ended up 5 wide, and ran into a really fast pace, and the horse is gassed, so they're not going to go back for the Preakness. If this Derby played out differently, you would have a much more horses in this Preakness field. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing a weaker Preakness field this year. This has not been a problem throughout all of the 90s and all the early 2000s from a competitive Preakness standpoint. And so, to me, changing it because of the last 4 years is short-sighted. If you want to make an argument where, throughout 2010 to 2015, we weren't getting good fields, no trainers were going, fine, but they were. I mean, you were seeing horses from Pletcher's barn go there, and Brown has only had a couple shots. And he knows that Zandon, I actually don't think Zandon could beat Epicenter. I think the way this race is also drawn up makes me, if I was training a horse, I would be very disinterested in going to this race. Because you have a lone speed horse in early voting, and you have Epicenter, who's clearly the best horse in the class right now, who's going to sit right behind and trip out. Do you really want to send Zandon there versus taking him at 1.5 miles where he's got a better shot at winning the race? I mean, to me, part of this is just being strategic. It's the same reason Rich Strike isn't there. You don't want to have this great story and then 2 weeks later get waxed by 15 lengths because you don't get the same pace setup.
Well, here's the deal. If the race was 4 weeks apart, there would be no debate. Zandon would be in the race.
Maybe. Rich Strike wouldn't. He wouldn't show up if this race was 2 months apart.
Well, I mean, you're not going to catch all of them, right? But we're going to have like 2 horses from the Derby in the Preakness. And it is for Mark, 1,000%. I hate that over half the field of the Derby, we don't see him again until the Haskell or the Travers. That's awful. I agree. And I think the only way you fix it is to make it more appealing for these new ownership groups and trainers to run in the race. And then if you space it out and they still don't run, well, I don't know what to tell you at that point. But maybe it's a problem that's just not fixable. But I just got to think, if we space it out 4 weeks, these horses that were taking money in the Derby, and now we won't see them again until the summer, they would be definitely more inclined to go to the Preakness.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to argue that if it was 4 weeks that you'd have more horses that were interested in going there. But I think that the ancillary issue of changing everything else is going to affect the Haskell. It's going to affect the Travers. It's going to affect how everything else plays out as well. And look, you have a whole point system just to get in the Derby. Of course, the other 2 legs aren't going to be as glorified, right? I mean, you have horses coming in from Japan. You have horses coming in from Dubai, all coming to run in the Kentucky Derby. They don't give a damn about the Preakness, right? And that could be more of the issue that you're seeing here. And you want to change that? Throw some bucks at it. The Preakness was a $5 million race. You know what? There would be a hell of a lot more than 8 horses that are going to be in this field. So
that's an interesting argument. Would all of a sudden that 2 weeks not make any difference? Oh, no, we can do that. That would be an interesting experiment to maybe try.
I mean, if there was a bonus for running the Derby winner, and if your horse ran in the Derby and you got $1 million bonus if it wins the Preakness, you really think 2 would show up? Or do you think you'd have 5 or 6? I mean, there's ways to fix this problem without spacing it out. It's just horse racing is not always very creative around ways to fix problems. Yeah. But to me, the spacing it out causes too many issues. And look, I like the fact that it took 30 years to get a Triple Crown winner. And the people, if you're trying to get outside people interested in it, Rich Strike was the only horse that mattered, right? Yeah. So outside of that, the field is it's all about horse racing, hardcore horse racing people that are going to care about the Preakness now, which is generally what happens if you don't have one of these Derby horses that is exceptional.
Well, and Mark says we're going to put a star by it if we change it. What have we put by the last 2 winners, right? Have we really seen a Triple Crown winner? Like, how long has it actually been now?
Would we have put a star by?
That's from the biggest American Pharoah fan in the world. Jared and I stood, and my wife stood right next to him when he won the Arkansas Derby. We were in the Arkansas Derby winner's circle with him, and I don't really count him anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer because I have great Justify memories too with my dad because we went to that Preakness, and so it's kind of a bummer. We look back like, well, yeah,
he's the horse in our logo for the Magic Mike Show. You and I started that in 2018 when he did that big Triple Crown run, so we're literally tied together with Justify on that one. It's an interesting debate, and Aaron, you made great points. I think that history shows that either eventually we'll space out or things are going to fall apart for us here. So hopefully we do space out eventually, but I'm going to side with Mike Somich right now on the side of tradition. I think that he kind of won me over in the chat, is kind of on his side here as well.
Just a real quick question. Would we have put an asterisk by 'Tis the Law?
I mean, that's a good question. A lot of people were saying yes to that answer.
I mean, just because he would have won the Belmont first, then the Derby, then the Preakness later in the season. Like, it was completely different. Yeah. Would that have been an asterisk one? I mean,
we have that way with Authentic's record, right? Is the Authentic set the Derby record, but he did it 3-4 months after anybody else has ever run the race, so he's a lot farther developed, Mike. So kind of, to your point there.
It's interesting. So I think that you probably would have had an asterisk by it, right? Because it was done differently, and obviously the record is held differently there. And if you look at Aaron's way of doing this, if we did say it was every 4 weeks, Arrogant might have been your Belmont winner because he ends up rolling in the Travers just 4 weeks later. So just the different, you'd have completely different horses in these races if we changed it as well, which I don't think is necessarily fair to the horses that have been able to do this in the past.
So let me ask you guys a question. Everybody listening, you guys as well. Little bit of devil's advocate, but I'm kind of serious about it. Have you guys put an asterisk over every Super Bowl winner, every college national champion, every World Series winner, every NBA title winner, every Stanley Cup winner in the past however many years since they changed their original format? of how to make the playoffs?
I actually had this argument with my nephew where a lot of the titles are BS because they were won prior to having a certain number of teams. Now, I don't put an asterisk by them, but you can't tell me that the Montreal Canadiens have won the most Stanley Cups in history. That's a joke because they won the mass majority of them when there were 6 teams.
But why did all those entities change? They adapted with the times. They adapted to what people wanted. They adapted to what people were telling them to do. On and on and on. I don't see it a whole lot differently. I really don't. And again, I think it would be more difficult to win the Triple Crown 4 weeks apart. Because I think the better horses would be right there. They could take advantage and actually win one of these races if given the opportunity. I mean, you can't sit here and definitively say Zandon can't beat Epicenter. Epicenter has lost to Call Me Midnight and Rich Strike. So he's got a history of losing to horses he shouldn't lose to.
Well, to be fair, Zandon has never beaten Rich Strike either. So let's not forget about that if we're gonna use that point against him. To me, the whole point of the Triple Crown is to try and find new fans, though, at this point, right? If we're really talking about, because the reason why there's expansion in all those sports, there's money. That's the reason. They wanted to make more money.
Yeah.
And if you're in horse racing, you say we want to expand the sport, does leaving the Triple Crown 2 weeks apart and then 3 weeks apart, is that better for expanding the sport because you have the attention after the Derby? Or is it waiting a month and then waiting another month? Because I would argue that the faster the better if you're trying to get new eyes continually to be on the sport.
You could debate it either way, I would argue. And again, you don't think Rich Strike would be there anyway, but let's say in a world that he would be there, I think that it would be help to have Rich Strike at the Preakness. I think that would get more eyes on it, right? Now we have an 80-1 shot that's not going to be in the Preakness. By the time the Belmont gets here, I'm sure there will be people watching, but how will the hype be, you know?
Well, the story would have been if he had won the Preakness.
Oh, my goodness.
If Rich Strike had won the Preakness, then all of a sudden it's going to be a movie. This is a story for the ages type thing, right? And we're not even going to get the chance to see that. And I would argue that the only way you would have seen it is money. If you had a $5 million bonus for him winning the Preakness, guess what? He's probably running that race because everything we heard is he came out of the race wonderfully. He'd been working out as good or better than he had before. Yeah. He galloped 2 miles the morning of the announcement that they're doing this for the horse. Everything was this horse is fine. Now he may not be, if he's not, they're doing right by the horse. Awesome, good for them. It's completely their choice of what to do here. But if you had a $5 million bonus for winning that race, I would be willing to bet that he's in it.
I would say you're probably right on that. I'm not gonna, like I said, you make good points. I have been for how old am I now? Well, how long have I been in racing? 15, 20 years. No, that's stupid. Don't change it. But I also like to see the best horses run in the biggest races, and we're just simply not getting it. And that's not a new problem. I mean, this comment, I really couldn't care less if Rich Strike was in this race Saturday. I couldn't. This is not about Rich Strike. I'm actually happy he's not there. How about that? But no, I'm not either because I would have bet against him. But
come on, run him.
Yeah, I'm not happy that he's not going to be there. But this is more about the Florida Derby winner not being there, the Bluegrass runner not being there. You know, how about Smile Happy, a horse that he's not going to be? You know, that's what it's about. That's the kind of horses I'd love to see run again. And again, Smile Happy's another one. He's totally pigeonholed. He's not going to turn around in 2 weeks, and he can't go a mile and a half. So all of a sudden, it's just like, well, we'll see him when we see him. Well, I can tell you right now, that's not building anybody as a fan that's trying to be a new fan. They're like, hey, I kind of like that Smile Happy horse, whether it's his name or, hey, I saw him just win randomly at Churchill last year. That's like, well, where did he go? 6 months later, they're like, when he shows up in the Ohio Derby or whatever, they're like, what is the Ohio Derby and why should I care?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to keep saying it's money, man. If they had $1 million bonus to win this race, if you were in the Derby, I bet Smile Happy's there. You know, I bet you'd see many more horses there, but they're not interested in doing that, and you don't have the same company, right? So that would be Stronach putting up the $1 million to help Churchill horses that just ran. Completely different companies that are both publicly traded that are against each other. Like, so you have some issues inside the industry that create more of it makes it more difficult to be able to do this kind of stuff. But Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I want to see better fields. I think this year is an anomaly. I think this specific field is an anomaly. And so I'm willing to pass that. We had a couple people mention in the chat. Usually get some Keeneland allowance winners. Usually get someone from California that wants to come in here and try this race. Usually have some Oaklawn horses that want to try this race. And we just don't have that this year either. Like the depth of this 3-year class wasn't the depth that we have seen in some other years.
Look at last year. Forget about this year.
Did 10 horses. It was a good race.
It was a terrible race. None of the good horses came back and ran in that race. Rombauer and Midnight Bourbon were the top 2 finishers of that race. That's the only argument I need to make.
I don't want to hear.
Wasn't there. Hot Rod Charlie wasn't there. Mandaloon wasn't. None of the good Derby horses were there, except the winner was there. Nobody else was.
Right, but that's what everyone cared about, the winner. And you had Concert Tour who went in and tried to take a shot after running at Oaklawn. You had a horse, Rombauer, coming from California. You had a horse in Midnight Bourbon who came back. And you ended up with a good Belmont as well. And you had 10 horses in the
Belmont
field.
Because they all skipped the Preakness. They could have ran it all 3 if they were spaced out properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could have had a great Triple Crown series with 3 good races. Instead of one where the horse got disqualified because of drugs, one that was a terrible, really just a bad race, and then an amazing Belmont. I agree with the Belmont. That was an amazing Belmont.
Unbelievable. Just the Rombauer slander.
It would have been fantastic to see those great horses run 3 instead of 2.
We got
Mike, you brought up a great point that Rombauer made it last year because he won that Golden Gate race. Well, the winner this year, Blackadder, nobody knows where he's at. We haven't seen him since he ate shit in the bluegrass. And then you've got Joe is going to come, it sounds like, but he wins the Tessio. That's a win in you're in. And then there's another race, the Oaklawn Stakes, right? Isn't that supposed to be a Preakness race? Mm-hmm. I couldn't even tell you who won that, but I don't think that horse is showing up, are they? And there's even if they did, there was nobody of note this year that won that race that's coming in.
Yeah, Homebrew won it, and he's not on the probable list. Yeah,
right. And everyone loved Homebrew too. Yeah, everyone was like, "Hey, that's going to be a Preakness horse. It's a great Preakness horse," and just doesn't show up. And like, to me, that again, this is showing we need to update it with Rombauer. I love that just for Aaron. It's just showing that this crop is the problem to me, not this overall problem. I do believe there's a Preakness problem. I think you solve it with money. I think you figure out how to do that if you really care about the Preakness. But the other part is Stronach wasn't even want the Preakness at Pimlico. So you have that part of the issue. They want it to be a Laurel. There's other problems that are kind of in the foreground for the Preakness as well. I think it's more of a Preakness issue than a spacing issue.
I feel like if you want to try to solve it with other ways, I would try that first. I would compromise with that situation. But if we're sitting here and we're getting 2 and 3 Derby horses year after year, you just have to do something at that point.
All right, gentlemen, that was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for that. We're going to move on. Let's talk a little bit more about the Preakness Stakes. An early look ahead. We're still not going to draw the race until next week, but here is an early look from this Bovada, Mike. We're pulling this from early look at the Bovada odds, and anything sticks out to you, Mike, from what you see here?
I actually like Epicenter plus 150. Like as weird as that sounds, I think you're going to get worse than that on the race day, and Epicenter's definitely going. That's been announced. I mentioned how there's not a ton of pace in here. There's not. I mean, it's early voting, and we saw early voting get run down by Zandon. Epicenter's going to be able to sit closer, sit a good trip. I don't love Creative Minister. I think 5-1's nuts there. I think Secret Oath is nuts at 4-1. Simplification maybe presses early voting, but if it does, that sets up even better for Epicenter. So I kind of like Epicenter plus 150. I wish I grabbed them at plus 250 before the announcement. There you go. We brought this up on the Magic Mike show that 250 seemed like a great price on Epicenter. Now you're getting plus 150 because we lost Rich Strike, but I still think plus 150 seems like the best bet here.
Aaron, what do you think about the odds that you see up here?
Agree.
Is there anybody from a long shot perspective, if you're looking past, Smile Happy's not going to go, but I mean, odds wise, is there anybody up here that even remotely interests you?
Well, of course, Smile Happy isn't going to go. It's 2 weeks in between races.
Oh, here we go.
He can't
the
go
simplification's
to the
there.
He can't go to the Belmont because it's a mile and a half. So he knows we're going to see Smile Happy again.
You could probably see him a 6-furlong turf sprint based on his trainer's track record.
Well, now that's fair.
Send him to Ascot with Tiz the Bomb, right?
Okay, listen, let's get serious for a minute. By the way, we need more of that kind of talk on these shows. That was fun. Okay, forget about that. Let's move on to the Preakness. Epicenter, that's basically 3-2 in odds of what you would get if you're looking at a tote board. If he's 3-2 on Preakness Day, I would absolutely pound him. So yeah, I want Epicenter right here. I think if even money is fair for him in this race. That's kind of the fair odds I'm going to set. Look, I look at this. I think Secret Oath would be a fantastic story. I think she's certainly improved, looked good. She's still a little bit slow based on numbers, so I don't want 4-1 on her. Simplification to me, I just can't bet him in this race, seeing that he lost to Wida Barrio pretty decisively a couple of times. I think he's nice. I think he hit the board. I get it if you want 5-1. It's okay. Like, you're almost there where you've got the price. He's certainly better than Creative Minister at 5-1. To me, it's a 2-horse race, right? Is everybody going to overreact and they're going to let early voting go and go slow? Or will Epicenter just kind of track him and get by him? I think if somebody's close to him in the, like mid-stretch, they're going to go out and go get him early voting. And I think Epicenter will be that one. But if I was going to take a shot on somebody, I would take a shot with early voting going gate to wire.
You got to think, like, what simplification is going to show up is a big part of this race, right? Are we going to see simplification speed simplification? Or are we going to see simplification stock simplification? And maybe we won't know until he misses the break or not, because that seems to what decides what type of race he runs. If you told me I was going to get stock simplification, I'd be interested in a cold try here with Epicenter early voting simplification in that order, because I think that would be a pretty good bet. If he goes, I think then you're like, okay, well, maybe you can see Secret Oath or Creative Minister come up and grab second, something like that. I think simplification is going to be key to the underneath part of this race, but I don't either way. I think Epicenter sits the perfect trip.
Simplification is the worst horse in the world when it comes to handicapping a race, especially if you love to look at the pace. And I know, Somich, you do very strongly, because you never know what he's going to do. He has, and we talked about this the Florida Derby, and he did it. He broke and he got up there. He has that ability. He could run early with early voting. Now, maybe he's not quite as fast, but he could be right there. He also might be last. And so it's a 50-50 shot.
We shall see.
What do we think about Shoddy? Barber Road ran better than I think we thought in the Kentucky Derby, passed a lot of more tiring horses than we expected him to. How's he looking for that trifecta, boys? Unoho, I'm sorry. I switched horses here. Unoho, how's he looking? Could he get third?
I mean, he could get third in the same light of any of them can get third, right? I mean, he's going to just come with one run. He's going to need a little bit of a pace meltdown. He's probably as good as like Rattle and Roll, Happy Jack, Skippy Longstocking. So yeah, maybe he can get up there for third.
Look, if Epicenter, early voting simplification, Happy Jack all go, he's got a shot for third. If you need a Derby setup. That's why Barber Road ended up sixth in the Derby. You need that same type of setup where they go a little too fast. You got some tiring horses.
Where's Barber Road? Well, if it was 4 weeks apart, we'd get him.
None of that.
Then Scotty would be happy that the horse that she's loved would still be getting to run in all three of these races. Now she has to wait 5 weeks.
Well, we don't even know if we'll see Barber Road in the Belmont. So let's not just assume that
he'll be there.
Okay, how over under on the number of Derby horses in the Belmont? I can't wait till there's like 3, and you're like, but there's one more than 2. Like
there'll be more than 2.
I was gonna say 4.
Well,
look, if the over under was 6.5, then like, okay, you got a point. That's big. Hold
on, I'm gonna pull up the finish, and we'll make an over under, and we'll bet it. How about that? That sounds
okay. Well, now you're gonna make the over under way too
Alex
low.
says Barber Road's holding out for that stud deal.
I kind of think Rich Strike is.
We talked about the Magic Mike show, by the way. Rich Strike was given up by his breeder, Kalleward Farm, one of the biggest breeding operations. Like, if anybody knows what that horse is worth as a stallion, it's the people that let him go for $30,000.
I mean, no slander to Joe Sharp. They also gave it to Joe Sharp. I mean, Kalleward, that's like not their top trainer when
they didn't go to Sisterson.
Horse. Yeah, so like that also kind of tells you what they thought about the horse right out of the gate.
Joe Sharp, they asked Joe to give him some of that blackberry wine to drink, may make him go faster.
So while Aaron is writing this down, I want to make sure I remind everyone we'll be back live later today. Is it 4:30 to 5:30 Magic? Is that right? What time?
5 to 6.
5 to 6 Eastern, basically, for the tournament show. So we've got a tournament over at racingdudes.com. If you're a subscriber, you can check that out. Log into your dashboard, and you can enter the tournament. It's $10 to enter. Top 3 prizes get cash, and there's a $150 bonus to the winning subscriber as well. So make sure you check that out. Aaron, are you good with your number now?
Okay, I'll give you a little bit of context here. Last year, it was a field of 8 for the Belmont. 5 of them ran in the Kentucky Derby. So almost over half the field. I don't know what 5/8 is.
So you waited 5 weeks and the field was smaller than the Preakness last year. That sounds wonderful.
I didn't remember that being an 8-horse race. I was really surprised to see that as well. So, but 5 out of the 8 this year. I'm going to set it. I'll set it at 6.5, and you go over under on that. 6.5.
That's under. Won't even be close. Won't even be close.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under.
Okay.
I think it'll be close. I'm not gonna go so extreme as my co-host there, but Somich and Mark, you guys are in the lockstep today.
Yeah, I would literally set that at like 4 and juice the over. I think you're going to see a lot of horses defect from the Belmont as well.
I think a lot of it will depend on Epicenter. If he rolls in the Preakness and then he comes into the if he goes to the Belmont, which I think he's 50-50 for the Belmont. A lot of people are like, oh, he's a lock. I don't know. I don't know if he really fits that as well as this Preakness. But anyway, another story. If he rolls, then that might scare a few off. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Mo Donegal. It's going to be Zandon, maybe a couple others, but maybe Epicenter. But that's about it. I don't think you're going to see Epicenter in the Belmont. I think that Asmussen's going to want him ready for the Saratoga season.
I'm with you on that. Rich Strike, I think, will be there.
See, we disagree on that one.
So yeah, kind of explain why you kind of are in that camp, but you don't think he's going to run again, right?
Well, I don't think you're going to see him run in a spot that is not favorable for him running a good race. And I think it's going to take a while to find that favorable spot. The last thing you want is for this horse to be an 80-1 Kentucky Derby winner and get waxed next time out. And he would have gotten waxed in the Preakness. This is not a great spot for him. There's not much pace. There's not going to be a ton of pace in the Belmont. So I don't think that's going to be a great spot for him. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, both of these Triple Crown races will kind of prove that the Derby was a quote-unquote fluke, right, because of the pace setup. And you're not like then the stud value goes down significantly. Where do you put him after that? What happens to the high? Like you really lose a lot of the luster around this if you don't place this horse properly. And so from a business perspective, it's the right move to not run him in the Preakness. And you've got to make sure that the next time you're in a race, there's quite a bit of pace in it. You can run into that pace. You want to be going 1.25 miles. Like to me, the Travers makes more sense. If you can get a bigger field with pace in there, that's a better spot for him to come back in if you're going to run him again. Or maybe like one of the smaller derbies that's 1.25 miles, 1.8 miles. Like those to me make much more sense than trying to run him back quickly in a paceless race at Pimlico or run him back quickly in 5 weeks, which is about the normal time frame, in a most likely paceless Belmont. Like it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me to try and run back to it. We got to remember all of the pace horses are not going to run in either of these races. Summers Tomorrow isn't coming back. Crown Pride's not coming back. Messier's not coming back. Everyone who set the pace is not going to be in either of these 2 Triple Crown races.
Well, Crown Pride, they said we're going to go to the Belmont. We'll see if he actually shows up. So,
I mean, he's in Japan. You're going to send him back and forth if you're going to send him to the Belmont? That doesn't make any sense.
No. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what Rich Strike does. I think he'll run in it. I don't know that they. It's hard to say because you don't know. You just don't know what is going on behind the scenes. Like that's what I was telling Jared last night. It's like if he really is 100% healthy and tearing down the barn and doing really well, then it's hard to believe they didn't run. Yeah, right. Like you just have the feeling something else might be going on with him, but there is no, there is, I don't know what the word I'm searching for there, but a transparency. There is no transparency in horse racing. You have no idea what's going on with it, but I think he'll be there. I think Brown will run Zandon. I think he makes sense. Mo Donegal is a lock to get.
Yeah, Mo Donegal will be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Barber Road is going to be there, at least according to what they're saying. And then hopefully we get some more. Crown Pride, I think he'll come back. Happy Jack, hell, they're running him in all of them. Why not take another shot? So.
Your way to get to 6.5 is hopefully Crown Pride flies back from Japan and Happy Jack enters after missing the pre.
You got to think Brad Cox will take a shot with Tawny, with one of his 3, Tawny or Cyberknife or I don't think Zozo's, but one of those 2.
It won't be Zozo's. You're not going to run him running 1.5 miles. No. I would be shocked if Tawny Port ends up there. I mean, maybe Cyberknife.
What do you think they'll do with Charge It?
I think we're going to see Charge It in the minor stakes. I wouldn't be shocked if they point to the Jim Dandy or the race, the Curlin before the Jim Dandy.
Yeah.
Because that was a great spot for him to be a heavy favorite in a longer race at Saratoga.
5 horse field.
Back. Yeah. You bring him back there. You run him an allowance at Belmont to get him prepped for it. You come back in the Curlin and then you run him in the Travers. I mean, that's got to be the Charge It route, right? And if you win a stakes, you're not eligible for the Curlin. That's why specifically I'm saying you target the Curlin.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. It lays it out pretty well for him. I said it on Lakers Up. He needs time, and now they have the time. So don't throw him in the Belmont. Just take your time, work out all of his problems, long list, and have him ready for that big summer. Yeah. But, if the spacing was right, maybe he'd be in the Preakness. No, I'm kidding on that one. That was a joke.
No, he would not. He would not.
No, that would be against him, even if the Preakness was 4 weeks away.
I think you'd be getting one more horse if you space this properly. I don't think Xander would be in this race anyway. I think the only one you might get is White Barrio. Outside of that, it wouldn't have made a difference with this class. This is an anomaly. I think you got to go back, and I have not done the research, so I'm not claiming I have, but I think you have to go back and look, okay, how big are the Preakness fields? How big are the Belmont fields? What have we seen from those two races? Typically, and I'm talking like 2000 to 2020, right, or 2018, prior to the maximum security mess, right? What were those actual numbers? And then if it's drastically bigger in the Belmont, and you're seeing better fields in the Belmont, then fine. Then we could talk about it. But to me, it's an overreaction. I realize we're done with that conversation, but I'm just going to say it.
No, that's what's fun about that conversation is, and again, both of us are not like calling each other idiots, but it's just like there's different opinion sets here. And really, maybe the best answer is we don't really fully know the answer until 2-3 years down the road. If what you're willing to say, if what we are seeing continues, then you got to start to lean my way, right?
Yeah, look, if the next 5 years we have 2 horses from the Derby and the winner doesn't show up, and then you have 5 horses in the Belmont from the Derby and they're all good, then yes, fine. But before these 4 years, the winner in the Derby always showed up. Generally, the top 3 in the Derby would show up there. Rarely would you see them skip the Preakness to go to the Belmont. So I think we have to everyone take a deep breath. Let's look at some past history on this and then make a decision on it versus hey, the last 4 years have been really messed up from a horse racing perspective. First ever DQ, longest shot since 1913, 2 COVID derbies. It's just very odd. Well, and the drug thing in the Dia Spirit, although the Dia Spirit did run back, but very odd 4 years, literally unprecedented. 4 things that have never happened the last 4 years, and that's you can't overreact on that.
This was supposed to be the normal year.
Well, and like I said, I can't really argue with what you said because it's factual. It is. It just that is what it is. It's been a weird time period, without any doubt. So yeah, we'll see. Hey, I want to shout out Shotty. She's a premium subscriber now. She's already won $50. That's great. We've only had 2 races today at Belmont and Churchill, and she's in the tournament. And we can't wait. 4:00 Central Time. We're ready. Sorry.
Let me check. I'm in a bunch of qualifiers right now. Let me check horse trainer, see where we're at here.
Stop it. We keep playing with Dr. Miranda, who won this 2 weeks ago, two sessions ago. Jared's trying to sabotage her. Just sent her the link with 90 minutes to post. Listen, she handicapped it in 5 minutes and beat us. So, I think 90 minutes is too much time for her.
Yeah, seriously. Just, we got to cut it down to 5 or something. We got 24 entries right now. So literally you've got a 1 in 20 shot at $150.
Now Miranda knows how all these trainers and owners feel trying to enter the Preakness back in 2 weeks. You need more space, don't you, Miranda? You need more time to make decisions and get prepared for your best race or, in this case, performance.
Honestly, what we needed was more time for you to make a better argument. We needed this spaced out so you have another week to come up with why we should space these out more, because none of the arguments are actually valid at this point.
They're all valid. That's the thing.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. We will be back later, as we talked about, with the Racing Dudes Tournament Challenge. So make sure you sign up for that if you haven't yet. If you're not interested in playing, you're just not able to, you still want to tune into the live show, we're going to be back and have a lot of fun for that. So subscribe to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. Hit like on the video before you take off. Gentlemen, it's been a fun morning. We'll do this again all next week leading up to the Preakness Stakes. Do we know what day they're drawing? Monday. Awesome. We'll be back Monday for a live we'll do like we did for the Derby. We'll just be live as they're drawing it, and we'll give you better coverage than they do because, 1, you'll be able to see our stream. 2, you'll be able to hear us. But 3, we're a lot of fun. So please tune in then. Join the Racing News Tournament Challenge. We'll see you then. Take care, everybody.